So, I'm human, just like you're human. And this section of verses is broken up in three distinct areas. And the first one is where to store up your rewards. So as I reread the sections, 19, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves don't break in and steal. For where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Your heart will be also. So I know what you mean. I know what you're sitting here thinking is treasures. What is treasures? Everybody immediately goes to money. Okay? That's where most people's mind go. Money. I've got to have money. I've got to have a big house. I've got to have a great family. I've got to have a great car. I want people to look at me. Okay? That's basically where that is. But treasures can be other things as well. You could covet other people's stuff. Like here, it talks about rust. We have metals. What makes gold so valuable? Because there's less of it than other metals. If lead were so valuable, then how did that work? Gold is more valuable than lead because there's less amount of it. And the more people that have it, the more they have as treasures. And they store up here. Moths eat treasures. My grandmother had a mink coat. My grandmother kept it in a closet, but she never wore it out because something would happen to it. Okay, she was afraid something would happen to it, so she left it in there. Now, the mink coat or something of that nature, we had wool, we had cotton, we had, back then, the moths would come in and they would eat that. Clothes were very important to people in the day when there was no money. Because if you had a nice set of clothes, it looked like you had money. But the moths would eat that. Now, I know you don't know what moths are or why they would eat the clothing, because today we mostly have polyester. They don't eat polyester. That's mostly plastic. But the moths will eat the clothing and destroy it. But I think what God is saying here is that your treasure, if it's down here on earth, it will be destroyed. There is a shelf life for treasure here on earth. It will not last forever. So if you have a car, I don't know how many of you are 16 or older, but if you had a car, no matter what, especially for the 3 young ladies from Michigan, okay, you would have rust on your car because of all the snow that you would get. And the rust would eat through your car. So no matter how nice your car looked, it would still become rusted and it would still fall away. But your treasures should be laid up in heaven. And unfortunately, you were not here last week to hear about it, but 6-1 tells you how you get those rewards to lay up in heaven for you, where they last eternally. Now, store up for yourself. Storing up is not a bad thing, okay? Because in Proverbs, Solomon talked about to look at the ant. What did the ant do? What does the squirrel do? He didn't talk about the squirrel. He looked at the ant. He said, follow the ant. The ant goes and stores up for the winter down there, and it's enough to make him survive through the winter so he can make it through the winter months to go out and get more. Jesus also talks about a man who had a barn. And he had so much that he stored in that barn. It got to the point where that barn could not hold any more stuff. So he went and he took all of that stuff in his barn and he helped the poor with it, and he made sure everybody could eat, right? No, he did not. He built a bigger barn and put it in there and got more stuff. And then when he died, he was allowed to carry that stuff with him on into heaven. No, he was not. It stayed there and it molded and it was gone. It wasn't his eternal reward. It was on earth. Now, we need to distinguish between eternal and earthly rewards. We need to make sure we understand that. Because my wife and I are moving. My wife and I have got a storage shed or a unit, okay? And we have stuff in it. But that's okay. We're moving. You follow me? So while we're moving and we're getting to a certain house, that stuff from the storage shed will be moved into the house. Now, if I have a house that won't fit all that stuff in the storage shed, I don't need to keep that storage shed because that's too much stuff. That stuff can be used elsewhere for other people. That stuff can be sold. The money can be given to the poor. But I'm not going to let y'all know about it because I want my reward to be in heaven and not here. So we got to understand that as we move forward, that you have rewards here or eternally in heaven. Where are you putting your rewards? You've come to Black Mountain, people. Y'all are going to talk to these people. You're going to spread the gospel to all these people that some of them probably never even heard of it. And some of them may even use some four-letter words that I'm sure none of y'all have ever heard, okay, to you. But guess what? You're not storing up your rewards here. You're storing them up in heaven, okay? You're storing up the rewards in heaven, not here, because you're going out doing what the Lord wants you to do. You left where you were and doing this for God. Now let's move on a little further. What does Jesus say here in this Sermon on the Mount? The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. So if the light within you is darkness, how deep is that darkness? Now, I myself don't really understand the difference because I did not know there was a gradation in darkness. Either you light or you dark, okay? It could be pitch black in here. But if somebody lit a little match right back there, I guarantee you're going to see it. I was sitting in the office the other night. Matter of fact, it was Saturday night a week ago in my office in the house. And our lights went out. Pitch black. Pitch black. My wife was through the hallway where the living room, for the laundry and the bathroom is, back down into the living room, okay? And she turned on a flashlight. a flashlight in the other part of the house. She turned on the flashlight. And from underneath my door, I saw the light. Okay? So I don't know why there's a gradation of darkness here, but apparently there is. And Jesus is not talking about your eyeball here. He's not talking about your actual eyeball. It's a metaphor. It is a metaphor that Jesus is talking about, because if you look in John chapter 9, Jesus taught, do you remember that Jesus healed, or not, do you remember? Jesus healed a blind man. And on an aside, I love that story, because the Pharisees kept calling this man in and asking him about, the man that healed his eyesight on the Sabbath, right? And he goes, I told you already. What, do you want to be his disciple too? And the Pharisees were like, no. But anyway, I love that. But it got down to the point where the Pharisees said, we can see also. And Jesus said, if you're blind, you don't have sin. But if you can see, then you have sin. Now, he was talking, that was metaphorical as well. So he's really not talking about the eyeball. He's talking about what goes in the eyeball. What do you see that goes into your body? Now, again, we started off talking about reward here on in heaven here on earth, right? Okay, now we're talking about what goes on inside your head with looking at things. Okay, it's a heart. We have heart issue. We should not talk about feelings, because feelings will take you wrong. We learned that from Joshua. I think it was Joshua. Feelings will take you wrong. But as we look through our eyeballs, we let things in. And then that starts creating darkness if we don't let in the correct things. If we let things here on earth in through our eyes, it can start to create darkness. And then that darkness within us will go forth through us. If we let things in that are light in our eyes, it creates light in our hearts. And the overflowing of that will become external to our hands. So I'm going to explain a little about myself in that. Addiction. If you allow addiction to take precedence over you, or to take control of you, whether or not it's something that you view through your eyes, or that you take internally, that is going to create an external stimuli. And it's not going to be good. It's not going to be for Christ. Some people are addicted. I know that in the society today, and they're fighting addiction to pornography, porneia. That goes into your eyes. It never goes away, people. It never goes away. It will stay there. What you see through your eyes will stay in your memory forever. Okay? Now you can change. God can change you to work for what His will is. And you can adjust to do that. The problem is, now you have something inside of you that Satan can use to start to pull you away. Okay? He can trigger it just like that, and it'll immediately come back, whatever it is. then what is the next thing that's going to happen to you? You're going to feel shame. You're going to feel unworthy. Don't let Satan have that hold on you. If you know Christ as your Savior, if you know it's Him that has brought you back to the Father and you have accepted Him, that has died on the cross with Him. And that is something that you're going to have to work and get help with. Jesus is going to have to help you with that. And let me explain. Nobody here can do this on their own. Nobody. Not one. We're covered in flesh, okay? And who is Jesus? Jesus is the Son of God. He is God incarnate. What does incarnate mean? Jesus came. God had lowered himself on this earth. He wrapped himself in flesh like us. We are in flesh. So he had fleshly desires as well. He had fleshly limitations as well. Okay, and I'm going to get to this here. The point I'm trying to make here is when he was going to the cross after he was flogged. Okay, how many have seen Passion of the Christ? Right? Yeah, I heard that was probably kindergarten compared to what he actually went through. Okay? When he went to the cross, what happened? He couldn't carry his own cross to Golgotha. He couldn't do it. He had to have help. Simon had to step up and carry his cross the rest of the way. It's not because Jesus wasn't God. It's because Jesus wrapped himself in flesh, like we are in flesh. And because we're in flesh, we need Jesus' help with this, to keep our eyes full of light, to keep pressing forward. All of y'all may be guilty of that. I'm guilty of it too. I was addicted to World of Warcraft. Okay? My wife had to make a date with me, an appointment, so we could eat dinner together. Or my work schedule started revolving around that. So everything that was going on inside my eyes, it started getting darker and darker and darker. Because I put one thing above the other. That became my idol over everything else. Now, I want to move back one thing to say that what you do for work does not have to interfere with what God wants you to do, because you don't have to separate the two. Okay? Because the storing up treasures for you here and making sure that you have the right lightness in your eyes, okay? Some people take that to an extreme, and I don't want you to think of it as taking it to an extreme and such. Like there's a group of people here called ascetics. Ascetics are people who believe that they should be poor, They should give up all earthly, worldly treasures, and that they should continue to punish themselves. They should continue to beat themselves. You know, where they would take straps and just start beating their backs, okay? That, no, you don't have to do that. That's an extreme. And then you've got another extreme over here that says, you know, I have to die with everything. Now, I'm not sorry that there's a lot of women in here, but I'm glad there's a lot of women in here. But there's some sayings that I'm used to, okay? One is, the difference between men and boys is the price of their toys. I can go along with that, okay? Number two is, he who dies with everything wins the game. And that's what society wants you to believe. How many people played Monopoly? Okay, what was the object of that game? To get all the land, to build hotels, and then make other people pay you until they're broke. Okay, that's not the way to do it, people. All right. It's okay to make money. I want to tell you, it's okay to make money, and it's okay to store up stuff, as long as you use the stuff. As long as you use it for what God wants you to use it. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is a story about Joseph. Joseph, the other brothers hated Joseph. Why? Why did they hate Joseph? Because he was the favorite son. Well, they sold him into slavery, and because of that, he went on to work for Potiphar, and then from Potiphar, he went on and became the second in charge of Pharaoh's land. So by doing that, he was able to what? Store up food. There was a famine going on. What did he do? He brought his family in to Egypt. His family came into Egypt, and he was able to feed them for the 7 years of famine. Why? Because he stored up the food. And it was in God's will that he stored up the food. So I want you to understand that it's okay to store up as long as you use it with God's will. As long as you use it for God's will. And any NASCAR fans here? Anybody remember Dale Earnhardt? I'm sorry. Dale Earnhardt was supposedly one of these mean drivers on the track, and he made a lot of money. He died in a race in Daytona 500. He died hitting the wall. Okay, his son Dale Earnhardt Jr. took over, and then Did you know that I didn't know this. I thought he was a mean person, but he's not. He knew this here. The money he made, he was always doing things and writing checks. And he told them, don't tell them where the money come from. And all of a sudden, after he passed away, everybody started coming forward. Churches getting $10,000 checks. Tell them not to let them know where it come from. Parking lots in churches needed to be paved. They didn't have enough money. He did it to pave the parking lot, to bring more people in. Okay? That's what I'm saying. He was rich, but yet we didn't know he was giving this money away, but he did. That's what I'm saying. It's okay to store up. It's okay to store up, but use it. It's okay to store up, but use it. Now, I think this next verse 24, kind of encapsulate everything that we've talked about before in verses 6, 1 through 18, and then 19 through 23. Verse 24. No one no one can serve two masters, since either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, in some versions it says mammon, which is mammona, okay? Which is a term that means pretty much anything, not just money, but God and money. And what do they mean by that? You cannot serve God and money. I'm going to ask a question about a bumper sticker. How many people have seen the bumper sticker, God is my co-pilot? Okay? What does that mean? You're the pilot. So, he's with you, or are you with him? Where does God fit into your life? I make my money over here, and it may not be great, but I need my money to live, right? But then I go over here and worship God, so I'm getting both at the same time. I work so I can have the money to live in a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home on 17 acres when it's just me and my wife. That's not true. I just made that up. We don't do that. But, okay. Do we need that? So why am I working to pay for that and then coming over here and saying I'm worshiping God? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm just as guilty as all of you. I like toys. I do like toys. I like radios. I'm an amateur radio operator. But I've always said I got to have 2 radios because one may break. Okay? Is it necessary for me to have 2? No. See what I'm saying? That other money could have gone somewhere else, and it didn't. So what is it in your life that you're worshiping besides God? What is it in your life that you're looking at besides God? Is God getting your full attention? Could you be saying that God's getting your full attention? That I'm doing this for God when you're not really doing it for God? Excuse me, for the glory of God, I should reiterate. Now, I've had a lot of jobs in my life, and I worked for Amazon delivery for 2 weeks until my body said, you can't do that no more. But here in the mountains, we have multi-million-dollar homes. Multi-million. Multi meaning more than one. Okay? And they're up in the mountains. And I'd have to press in a code at a gate just to get into their neighborhood. And I'm delivering Amazon packages. But while I'm up there in that neighborhood, I'm feeling this heaviness, this sorrow. Because I'm looking at these people. These people are enslaved. What are they enslaved about? I don't know. Particularly, I've got an idea. We've got to have the biggest house in the neighborhood. Okay? We got to drive the best car out of all of our friends. But to do that, I got to work 80 hours a week and have nothing else. That's what I'm feeling out of these people. That's what I'm seeing. And if they lost any amount of their money, it would just totally devastate them. Devastate them into the point of, I will take my own life at my own hands, because death is worse than living poor. Death is worse than living under what I'm used to or having to deal with somebody else where I am under them. There are people out there like that. And to tell you the truth, it excites me today because I hope you run into those people this week. I really do. I really hope you get to talk to these people. Because what you're going to give them, it's the same thing that Peter said. Peter, I can't remember the other apostle that was with him. Silver and gold I do not have, but what I have I give to you. And what was that? The gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what you're going to give these people. And I think for the first time, if you do that and they listen, you're going to give them hope. Because that's what anybody needs, is hope. You put your faith in Jesus, and now you have hope for a future. Not a future here, a future in heaven, where you're eternally with him. Now, some people may think a blessing is money. A blessing is things. And for Job, that may be the case. He was rich. God took everything away from him. God gave everything back. Abraham was a wealthy man. Lot, not so much. Paul didn't have anything. Jesus didn't have anything. Your lot may be to wind up in prison, falsely accused, or being later on, you never know, being accused of being a Christian, no matter where you go. Okay? But that's your blessing. That's the blessing that God gave you. And as long as you're in the light, the eyesight of the light, and you're working in that blessing, and you're serving God as a slave. Slave isn't a bad term. You're a slave to God. That may be your lot. But as you do that and you serve God, that's going to be your blessing. Just remember that wherever you go. But one other thing I want to talk about is there's a word of faith movement out there. I don't know if anybody's heard that. Sow $1,000 seed and you can get multi-million dollars back. Or I like to call it blab it and grab it. Where you say something and you create it into existence. That is not your blessing. Okay? That is not how God works. God doesn't want you to be wealthy here on earth. He wants you to sow up into heaven. Where what? Nothing rusts and moths do not destroy. That's what he wants you to do. He wants your rewards in heaven. And if he should bless you with money, then it's your job to steward that money. Like the parable that Jesus talks about the 3 talents, about the talents and the stewards that were supposed to take care of the talents. Don't bury that money here. Use it. Use it here for the reward that's to come in heaven. You can't serve money and you can't serve God at the same time. God's a jealous God. He wants all of you all the time. Okay? So you look to God. You ask for what God's will is so your will can become the same. And whatever that is, you use it for reward in heaven. Let us pray.